The RTA of these libraries are not still like I think like
Yeah, I mean they use all the
I don't even mean that. Like really thick stuff.
3, 2, 1, go. Now, unlike before, this run is entirely memorized, so there shouldn't be any RNG things screwing me over.
Yeah. So the big thing, the game that was played before, Sacred Stones, that was a normal playthrough, whereas this is what you would call an RNG manipulation playthrough. That means that things like hit rates and critical rates and whatnot, those can be manipulated. If you move your cursor in such a fashion and push buttons at the right, or push the right buttons, whatever. If you reset before this chapter starts, everything is put in a fixed manner. So basically, if you do things the exact same way, you'll get the exact same results.
Yeah, basically the Fire Emblem series in particular is one of the rare examples of a game that can be so heavily manipulated that you can actually control absolutely everything about the randomness of the game. Just because basically the only thing that advances the random number generator in the game is combat, the first moment of the enemy's phase, and a very neat little thing involving the cursor movement, which is when you'll notice when you move the cursor around, it shows a little arrow showing which path the character will take. Now, if you move the cursor in such a way that it needs to recompute the path that the arrow will follow, like for example, if he's passing through terrain that takes more movement or something, the game needs to decide how to reconstruct that arrow. And so in particular, it needs to decide whether to do a loop like this or a loop like this. And that decision is done using the random number generator. Basically, it draws a single number between 0 and 99. And if it's 49 or below, it goes down, and if it's 50 or above, it goes up. And so as a result, what you can do is you can actually advance the random number generator by using that technique. And so, you do this in this run, right?
Yeah. I do it. The first time I do it is in chapter 6.
Okay. And so as a result, there are certain points in the run where he may get bad luck or may need better luck. So you can do this to advance the random number generator just enough so that he'll get the better circumstance that he needs. So for example, you just saw you got a really good level up. Level ups in this game are random, but if you know that the next set of random numbers will give you a really good level up, you can manipulate it so that you'll get that level up. It's really neat, and this is an example of a real-time runner doing it. The task, because it can move the cursor so quickly, can do really heavy manipulation, even beyond this. So it's even worth checking out that if you're interested in this kind of game.
Yes, obviously this is a single segment, but segmented runs, allow you to do very, very silly things.
Yeah, I actually, when I was playing in this early on, I had a route that manipulated the RNG a lot more, but not only would that be difficult to remember it all, I didn't think it would be very entertaining to watch because it would just be like a task done in real time.
Yeah. But, I mean, the main thing to keep in mind here is that, this is mostly memorization, but there's a big input component to this as well, because like one errant cursor movement completely changes the RNG, so.
Yeah, and execution's a big thing. I mean, I'm not, Viking 12 does a lot of runs, the Fire Emblem community knows him. He's the best out there. And the thing about this game is, because it's a Game Boy Advance game, to speed up the cursor, you have to hold B, but B is also the cancel button. So if you're not careful with it, you'll just cancel a move that you wanted to speed up. It's kind of tricky to get the hang of because you have to hold the button before moving.
Yeah, shout out to Viking 12, VYKAN 12. He is an insane Fire Emblem runner. I believe he's been working on Path of Radiance right now.
Radiant, no.
Oh, Radiant Dawn, sorry.
Yeah, he recently got something like 253 on easy mode, single segment, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah,
amazing. Given
and-
how long that game is.
Yeah, and I believe that game isn't like the Game Boy ones. I don't think you can actually, like, the RNG works differently.
Yeah, the Game Boy games have a much more manipulatable RNG. The GameCube games, conversely, you can't do nearly.
Yeah, you can't do it in
the
real
RNG
time.
manipulation.
So he just got a character named Florina. That's the Pegasus Knight you'll be seeing a lot of.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, as a flyer, she's very, very useful because she has more movement and she can go over things. A big thing in this game is seizing like thrones or castles, which you need your lord character. In this case, Lynn. Later on, it'll be Eli Wood. And so a big thing will be, the Pegasus Knight rescuing the lord and then, going straight to the throne. Normally, this would be incredibly dangerous because, for instance, you might notice an archer up there. Florina has incredibly low defense and really bad strength as well. Normally. And,
Yeah, it's definitely not the case here.
yeah.
Which
But,
also takes triple damage from arrows specifically.
yeah.
It's double in this. In the Japanese
double,
version,
okay.
yeah, in the Japanese version it was times 3.
Okay. Is it times 3 in the Game Boy ones?
I can't remember offhand, but I think it is.
But in short, arrows eat her for dinner. Anything eats her for dinner because she has, like, no defense.
That's why Lin mode is, I don't like playing Lin's mode, but it gives you a chance to level Florina up before the main game actually becomes halfway difficult. Not
Yeah.
that Ella with normal's still a joke.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, this game has a pretty good difficulty curve in my opinion, just because, Eli Wood Normal is sort of designed for people. This was the first Fire Emblem game to come out in America, so they actually included Lin's mode as sort of a prologue, this is how you play Fire Emblem, and then Eli Wood's is kind of, the main story. But they also made it a little easier than, say, Fire Emblem 6, which is quite difficult.
Really hard.
Yeah. But they do actually have options to make the game harder. So you can go Eli Wood Hard mode, which is, a good step up. And then there's an additional mode called Hector mode. And Hector Normal is, of course, harder than Eli Wood Normal. And then Hector Hard mode is the real challenge of the game.
Yeah.
Right. It's also the only way you can get the best ending.
Yep.
Oh, it's a hori pad.
This right here, if you want to play Game Boy Advance games, is pretty much your only option aside from actually getting a Game Boy Advance link cable. I know people have their own preference, but I mean, it's a solid controller, quite comfortable.
Yeah, I don't own an SP, so therefore I've never really learned to play on one.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, here's the thing. The weird part, when I was planning this out on an emulator, because it makes it much easier, for some odd reason, leaving Dorcas alive causes him to join you automatically, whereas on the cartridge, in Lin's mode, he just vanishes entirely. And he'll show up again on Ellawood's mode. Like, I don't even
Maybe
understand why
it's
he's
a
there.
version difference, like releases.
I'm not sure, but whatever it is, it's really weird.
Okay, so this is an example of a defend chapter where you need to survive a number of turns. However, he's taking advantage of the fact that one of the characters will not actually fight you because you're actually meant to recruit him. So if you just stick him out front or manipulate him so that he is out front, you can just spend the rest of the chapter just ending turns.
Yeah, this map is kind of input heavy. It's a real pain. I get rid of Will's iron bow because I'm just going to sell it later and sell Florina's vulnerary and buy a javelin, which is much more useful. Holding A. One HP critical. I had to actually move the cursor all the way around that guy because if I had just moved it straight to the right twice, it would have consumed a random number, and because it would have had to figure out a path to draw because there were 2 ways to get around it, and it would have just screwed up that level up entirely. And also something that was brought up during Sacred Stones, I just wanted to correct, is when you rescue somebody, the build or the constitution of the person you rescue doesn't actually affect your stats any differently. like say a 20 build person could rescue a 19 build person, it won't change the penalty they take. That was only in Fire Emblem 5 they had it where if the person that you rescued was half your build or more, you would take a movement penalty in addition to everything else.
Really? There's only Fire Emblem 5? Huh. Well, I guess that makes sense. That game does just kind of hate you, but...
The penalty is 5 speed, 5 skill?
It halves your skill and speed.
Oh, really? Okay.
I mean, either way, like, rescuing is very dangerous for battles because speed is such an important stat in this game.
Yeah, some of these maps, well, it shouldn't show up here, but some of these maps I didn't plan out exactly as consistently as I should just because some of the scenes that play out before a map starts, characters will move in them, and the game even uses numbers, random numbers, to determine where they move. So if you don't skip the scene just as fast as you planned it out, you'll have to reset because everything will be screwed up. You'll see that a few times where I'll have to mash kind of hard.
So since you selected hard mode, are you doing Elowood's hard mode or Vector's hard mode?
Just Elowood normal. They give you a choice.
Yeah,
afterwards.
the reason he's doing Lin hard mode, I believe, is because, like, it takes out the tutorial stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, because Lin normal is just a horrible thing. Nobody should ever play it past the first playthrough.
Yeah, like, if you've never played a Fire Emblem game before, I'd say it is actually a good starting point. It gives you basics pretty well.
Otherwise, it just holds your hand way too much.
Yeah, oh yeah.
To the extent where certain chapters are, like, it tells you exactly which
Where to
square to
move,
move
yeah.
to and which guy to attack.
Yeah, and you'll notice I'm giving Lin a lot of level ups. That's because my strategy for the final chapter of Lin's mode, which is chapter 10, when she fights Lundgren, she's pretty much the best choice for actually taking him out because he's a general, and her special weapon does bonus damage against armored units. And you can actually all you have to do in this map is just defeat the boss. So it is possible to use Florina to get a 1% javelin critical in this guy and just drop him immediately. But it's also a 50% hit on top of that. And the amount of manipulation it would have taken to get it is just not worth it. So instead I go for something a little easier.
And something to keep in mind here, like, you could feasibly manipulate the RNG to a point where all the enemies always miss you, you land crits on everybody, whatever, but that does also require you to really move the cursor a lot in a fixed pattern rather quickly if you're doing speedrun. So
A lot of times it actually turns out to be faster to just do something a little bit less efficient in terms of turns.
Yeah, because the RNG manipulation does take time. So even if a crit is obviously going to be faster than hitting twice, there's a good chance that it will still be faster to hit twice just because of how long the RNG manipulation is going to take.
This is one of those maps where I have to skip sort of fast. Oh, perfect.
So yeah. Alright. So yeah, normally putting Florina here would be suicidal. Because again, she has very low defense. Her strength isn't the greatest. But
There's also a ballista up there.
yeah, there's a ballista up there, there's another bow looking down. Yeah.
Well, I think she's out of the range of the list at this point. But instead, it actually it tries to fire at Nils, which is still bad.
Yeah, it's still pretty bad because Nils is also pretty fragile.
Yeah, he's just a bard, so he doesn't have much HP. Yeah, later on you'll definitely see part of the RNG stuff, like why it's nice to plan it out, because just you'll see what Lynn does at the end.
I'm personally a fan of Nil's sister Ninian, who, for whatever reason, has a decent strength growth. Like, on average, on my playthroughs of this game, I'd say her strength growth was actually better than what Seth had in the marathon this year. So,
Love it when she gains 1 strength
oh yeah.
that she'll never use.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And Yogi talks a lot. I have to skip 3 scenes of him talking and a single turn.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we forgot to mention the mightiest swordsman ever that he took on Glass.
Yeah, the annoying thing about the enemies down there, the ones that are around Lynn, those 3, is that they all have Reaver weapons. And so the axe guy there, that bandit, is kind of a pain because Lynn can't really do much to him.
Yeah.
She uses a sword. That happens.
Oh, he missed twice. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, normally you'd be panicking right now because, 5 HP and a whole bunch of enemies. It's cool.
Yeah. One thing that's also very forgiving about Lynn's mode is if a character dies, they actually do come back later. It's usually not what happens in a Fire Emblem game, but that's just for this particular mode.
The caveat is that they come back at level 1 rather than having the extra experience that you have.
Yeah, it's their base level. As far as I remember. Speaking of which, there are times where you could save time by letting someone die, but I've always been somebody who would reset
I
when
agree.
someone dies.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a wrong way to play, so
Yeah.
I will go out of my way to spare Lucius's life.
Yes. Yes. That's the proper way to play Fire Emblem. Everyone lives. That's just what you gotta do.
This will be the first instance of RNG manipulation directly in the next turn. You'll see its effects. It's pretty powerful. Okay, here we go. And that little movement there causes this magical boss fight.
Yes.
He misses, and then he
Whoosh.
dies. And she gains strength on top of that, which is important for London.
Yeah.
Oh, she criticals that guy too.
Yeah. That's very unfortunate.
Yeah, that little manipulation there is worth it, just because doing an extra turn in this map would be it would take way too long.
So that was supposed to be your intro to the Fog of War, but oh well.
Yeah. Who needs that? Oh yeah, by the way, this is the only time you'll ever see Lucius used in a speedrun. Normally you wouldn't use a kind of a weak mage, or weak monk, I should say. But he's useful here because the boss is armored, and so he doesn't have that much resistance. Yeah. So all he's got to do is just do a little chip damage so that Link can finish him off. This is also the introduction to the rain mechanic, which thankfully doesn't come up. I don't think it comes up anymore in the run.
Yeah, I totally forgot about Rain actually.
Yeah.
Like,
There are only
oh,
a few other effects in the
that's a
game,
thing.
thankfully.
Was Rain also in 6?
Not that I remember now.
Yeah. I know that there's snow in this game too, which I think is basically like the deserts, right?
Yeah, the snow did exist in 6.
Yeah. No, the effect that snow has.
Yeah,
Quite the same as the desert.
it slows you down.
Yeah.
That's
all you
Well, I
that's
guess
the
it was the same
main
as rain actually, which just kind of slows you down. And Lucius, I believe, is the introduction of the monk class, which is another thing that we haven't really seen as much in more modern Fire Emblems.
Normally, the only way to get light magic is to use your staff user just to a psychotic degree so that they get enough experience to promote to their next level.
Yeah. Unless you use like a specialty staff, like staffs do not give you much experience, unfortunately.
maybe unless you're playing Fire Emblem 4, where they give you like 50 a use,
Yeah.
30 a use. Yeah, that was rain. It rains for 1 turn. And that was the boss.
Yep.
He tried. He really did. He couldn't even hit Lucius. That's how
Could
bad.
not even hit Lucius. Although in fairness, Lucius is actually a pretty good unit.
He crits a lot for some reason.
Yeah.
This energy ring is actually important. I've had runs where I've forgotten to use it and just went on with the game. In chapter 16, there's this archer that Florina has to kill, and if she hasn't used this energy ring, she won't do enough damage without a critical. And the way I do the saves, by the time I realized it, I couldn't go back. Yeah, kind of sucks.
Energy ring increases your unit's power stat, so either their physical strength or magic, depending on whether they're a magic or physical use type character. So, yeah.
That's Ellenwood's only kill, by the way.
Too bad we couldn't have actually seen his critical hit animation because it's actually quite fantastic.
Oh, and Dorcas didn't want to join earlier, but he'll just magically come out of that village.
And Bartray.
Thankfully, we're not doing a all characters run here.
Yeah,
Hector
all
hard,
character Hector mode, yeah.
Yeah.
because otherwise you would have to raise him to a 10-5 warrior. Basically, he has to be a level 5 warrior, which is a promoted class. So he has to reach at least level 10, promote, and get 4 more of those on top of it,
Right.
just to get one character.
Yes. A character that you have to do one round of battle against and not kill.
Yeah.
Well, I assume you could just take her weapon, or take his weapon.
Well, yeah, you can equip him with a bow, so it's not a huge deal.
But it'd be real fun for a speedrun to have to
Yeah, figure out a way to get-
train that guy.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have a horse, so trying to get him to keep up with the rest of your army, namely Marcus, who is the one-man army.
So yeah, Marcus is this game's Jagen character, which means it's a pre-promoted unit that starts out with really good stats, but unlike an 8, Marcus does not have terribly good growths.
Right.
So at least for a casual playthrough, it's highly recommended that you do not use Marcus as much as possible.
Yeah, like most of the people that play this game for the first time, they probably used Marcus a lot, and then they kind of hit a wall eventually, and they're like, what? That sucks. What happened?
He's actually still better than most of
He's certainly better than
guys you
Jagen,
get,
yeah.
Well,
He's better than FE6 Marcus.
he's better than the actual Cavaliers that you do get. It's just, if you rely on him too much, you might run into problems.
Yeah.
On Hector Hard, anyway. But yeah, Fire Emblem 6 Marcus is not so high. Because he's old by then.
Now they saved all the good stats for, I believe, Percival.
Hard mode Percival.
Hard mode, Percival. Yeah, that's the fun thing I think about FE6 hard mode. Like, I think the pre-promotes got better stats or something, right?
Something like that. I don't know, I'm not as familiar with FE6. So that right there is Hector. Hector's amazing. Just saying.
Yeah. Yeah, Hector is, like, easily one of the, like, most OP lords in Fire Emblem history.
Unfortunately, when it comes to speedrunning, he still doesn't have a horse, therefore he
Yeah,
is
well,
still
yeah.
useless.
Yeah. It's different.
It's pretty much like a tier list when it comes to speedrunning.
Yeah.
Do you have a? Can you fly? No, then you're no good. Do you have a horse? No, then you're no good.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the interesting thing about Fire Emblem running is that a lot of chapters typically involve kind of a blitzkrieg strategy where you just send as much as you can out as fast as you can. So you just won't see certain units get any use at all.
Yeah.
Poor archers. They'd love to be useful.
Yeah.
And the next chapter, it's gonna look a little ugly because it's really hard to practice for some reason. Is what they call a rescue train, where you rescue somebody with, say, a mounted unit and move forward, and then you have the next unit pick him up, and so forth, and you can move a unit much farther than usual. And I just screwed that up.
So yeah, what happened there is he accidentally made
I grabbed the wrong guy.
Yeah,
Or
okay.
I grabbed the right guy, but I didn't move element first.
yeah. So resetting literally resets the RNG. So
Yeah, discard your sword. No. Yeah, but what you see there is that it's going to allow Marcus to get across that river, which normally he can't cross it because of his class. But Hector can, because Nord units can.
It's something that they kind of, I would say, fixed in the GameCube games where you couldn't rescue mounted units with a non-mounted unit. It's kind of weird because Hector basically just carried Marcus and his horse across the river.
yeah, that's Hector, man. I would believe it.
That's true. Yeah, you can do anything.
Or quit. I can see the future. Also, that village there that Matthew's going to visit has a very important item for this run, which is a mine. Because the mine glitch allows you to control enemies, which you will see very soon. Starting in chapter 15. I don't have Marcus attack there because I want a favorable level up, and he wouldn't kill him in one round anyway, so you would have seen him restore HP at the start of his turn. When I was planning this out, a lot of the decisions that I decided to do, instead of like wiggling the cursor around to manipulate things, I felt it would be more just better to watch if I would just do something instead. Like say Mav, I could have wiggled the cursor around there to get that level up, but it was easier to just have Matthew attack that guy instead, which consumes enough of the numbers that it gives me the favorable level.
Well, basically, the typical 2-round combat would consume 8 or 9 random numbers. So, reasonably quick compared to cursor movement anyway, so it's not too much of a trade-off.
Right.
Fun fact, this map also exists in Fire Emblem 6.
Oh yeah, that's right. And I believe you fight the exact same guy too.
Yeah, I'll say in hard mode, this map on Fire Emblem 6 is not very fun at all, because in that game, reinforcements appear on the start of their phase, and they like to appear right next to your guys.
Yeah. Quick thing actually, Fire Emblem 7. Although this is the first Fire Emblem to come out, it's actually 7 in like Japan, and this is actually the prequel to Fire Emblem 6.
Yes, and Fire Emblem 6, for those who don't know, is the one with Roy.
Yeah.
This has Eliwood, who is Roy's father.
Yeah.
also has Hector, who promptly kicks the bucket in 6.
Yeah, that's like one of the biggest plot holes in the history of video games is how did Hector not just one-shot Zephiel in Fire Emblem 6?